right? So obviously it would be super easy for me to kick this off and say, today we're joined by the number one pitching prospect in baseball, but there is so much more to that, right? We're joined by a College World Series champion, a dude who was actually a two-way player, right? Being a pretty good catcher and hitter, right? I feel like that doesn't get enough credit. A dude who was a member of the U.S. Air Force and has flown in the back of a few jets, right? If I recall correctly, not just one. One who grew up an Angels fan in Southern California, and one who is now the third highest prospect in all of baseball, according to MLB Top 100. The one, the only, Paul Skenes. How are you doing, man? Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm doing well. I'm ready to get going for the season.
Yeah, we're excited to watch you for sure. I want to start by asking you about Spring Breakout, this event. So for those who aren't familiar, MLB Spring Breakout is a 4-day event from March 14th to 17th this year at the Grapefruit and Cactus League stadiums during spring training. A series of 16 exhibition games are going to be played between teams comprised of each MLB organization's top 20 to 25 prospects. It's an awesome opportunity to showcase some of the best prospect talent that we have in baseball right now. Paul, had you heard about Spring Breakout at all?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest, when it came out, just because I hadn't seen it before. But looking forward to it. It's cool. Obviously, the Pirates and the Orioles complexes are really close to each other. We play a lot. We play each other a lot during spring training. So that's not going to be the only time we see each other, I think. But yeah, it's going to be a cool day.
Is there, like, obviously Pirates, pretty dang good system. Orioles also maybe one of the best farm systems in baseball right now. A lot of guys with the opportunity to play in that game between Jackson Holiday, between, Heston Kjerstad, Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basallo, like plenty of names there. Is there anyone that you are kind of like circling, you're really looking forward to facing on that squad, looking forward to that challenge?
Not really, because like you said, it's such a deep, it's going to be such a deep lineup. So, throwing against them, as tempting as it is sometimes to circle one guy, there's always a lot of other guys in the lineup that can beat you. I've played with a number of those guys. I played with Enrique Bradfield over the 2 summers ago now, with USA, and know him pretty well. And he'll probably be there as well. It's played against Ardoin. He's from Louisiana, and I've seen him a lot. Obviously Holiday, and but some of those other names I'm not super familiar with. So it's going to be a cool day, and just get to compete against the best.
I know you've already had some pretty good competitions with Dylan Cruz. We'll forget one of the at-bats, the home run no one really knows about, no one needs to know about. But Enrique Bradfield, is that someone that you're like close enough with that you're like hoping to strike him out and send him some talk afterwards via text or something?
No, I feel like that always comes back to bite you. Yeah, no, we're close, and he's a guy that I really respect, and I like the way he plays the game. He's just a straight up winner. But yeah, I feel like that stuff always comes back to bite you.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm too anxious to do any of that stuff, like, because you're right. It's like at some point down the line, some guy's going to get a base knock off you that, maybe scores a winning run. You're like, all right, I'm not dealing with this right now. I'm not checking my phone for the next 4 hours. Is there anyone, I mean, I know you've only been in the organization for less than a year, but is there anyone else you're looking forward to maybe getting the opportunity to showcase themselves in the Pirates organization? I know DeMar Johnson is there with you. Someone else that you're like, this will be a really great opportunity to watch this dude shine?
Yeah, I think the top 100 list and the prospect rankings and all that kind of speaks for itself. But we have a lot of depth throughout the organization. I feel like that maybe some people don't know about, or a lot of people don't know about. A lot of really good players that are going to make a difference soon in the big leagues, I think, and we're all going to be playing together for a long time. Yeah, I mean, aside from the guys that are the top 100 guys, Z Chang and Gorski and Braxton Ashcraft, guys like that are not household names yet, that I think will be very soon. And got to play with them for a little bit in the pro season after the draft last year, and I think we're going to be playing together for a long time.
That's awesome, man. Before we're gonna get to a bunch of like technical pitching questions, which I'm excited to hear your opinions about. But before we dive into that, getting away from spring breakout for a second, you went from an atmosphere in the College World Series that's sold out stadiums, right? Like dudes screaming their heads off, super intense, something you've thought about and dreamed about for quite some time, to the minor leagues, which obviously in lower A is going to be a little bit less intense, right? It's not going to be 15,000 fans screaming their heads off. What was that transition like for you? You know, how were you? Did you have to shift your mindset at all, going from that big raucous stadium to something that was maybe a little bit of a step back from that?
To be honest, not a ton. And frankly, because I knew that I was only going to have so many outings, and I wanted to, do well in them and throw hard and strike guys out and that kind of thing. That was kind of the goal. And after the draft and the pro season, obviously to work on stuff, but that's always the goal when you go out there and compete is to win and compete at the highest level. So it was different, and I think it was a little bit more internal probably after the draft. Obviously, the fans they do have a big effect, and I'm a guy that really thrives on adrenaline, I would say. And LSU fans give that to you, man. There were a lot of LSU fans in Omaha that those 2 weeks, so it was definitely different going from that to throwing on a backfield in the FCL and then to a low A game and a couple other double A games. But I think a little bit of it is also just relative, how big the stadium is. And if the stadium's full, it looks like there are a lot of people, even though it might be a lot less than the 25,000 that we had in Omaha. But that, just looking around and seeing that's something that I felt during the pro season after the draft. And so it was different. It was just kind of an adjustment. It wasn't super, super difficult.
All right. You had an interview with Pitching Ninja. Before I get to my question about that and some of the great learnings from that, was that surreal for you? I mean, I imagine while you were growing up watching pitching and pitching yourself, you probably saw a lot of Pitching Ninja's tweets. How was that to be like, oh, cool, like now I'm sitting down with Pitching Ninja, he wants to know about my grips, like it's my turn to show all of these pitch grips off? Was that like a surreal moment for you?
Yeah, it was kind of cool. And I watched a lot of his YouTube videos and seen him on Twitter and Instagram and that kind of thing. And then after my first outing of the college season last year, I had someone text me like, "You made Pitching Ninja 6 times." I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, and so that was that. I mean, it was cool, kind of all around, to be able to kind of get that platform and see the difference between last year and the year before, and allow everybody to kind of see my development, that kind of thing. But the interview was cool. He's a good guy to talk pitching with.
Yeah, he's amazing, and I know that MLB just worked with him to create like a swords leaderboard, and I know that they're going to have that moving forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing your name on the official swords leaderboard over the course of the year. In that interview, to get a little bit more into the technical aspects of pitching, you talked about wanting to kill a little bit of the horizontal on your four seamer, right? And you talked about adding 2 different breaking pitches. This is about 8-9 months ago. Is that still a focus? I mean, it looks like in your short stint in the minors, you might have this sweeper and slider, more gyro bullet slider combination going with your curve. Are you still focused on those things?
Yeah. And I think the nice thing about the pro season was that I got to learn a lot about my body and pitching and that kind of thing. Get used to the routine of pitching in professional baseball. There's a difference between a 7-day rotation and a 5 or 6-day rotation, and doing that every week. And so the goal really, when we got to after I signed, was to pitch in some games because I felt good and wanted to compete and do all that, but more so to kind of get used to the routine of it all. And so we had some goals, like you said. It was the shorter slider and a bigger slider and a curveball, and to throw the sinker more and that kind of thing. And as I've looked back on the data from the pro season compared to the college season. The data was a little bit different, and I've learned from that, learned about my body and what I need to do to maintain that. But the goal is kind of the same. Circling back to your original question, it's the between now it's not so much killing horizontal on the four seam. It's kind of it's more so just creating separation between the four seam and the sinker. So which it's interesting because my four seam a lot of the time now has same with during the college season, but a lot of the time it has more horizontal than my sinker. It's just a depth difference, which is what you want to create in a fastball and sinker, and having two different fastballs makes it a lot harder to hit. And then the slider, just being able to manipulate it, make it bigger, shorter as I want to. So yeah, that's been the focus of the off season also.
You mentioned though in that interview though that you're a natural pronator, right? Has that made the evolution of those breaking pitches more difficult for you, or has that made the evolution of working with that four seamer sinker combination difficult for you at all?
Yeah, so that's kind of been the perception of, that's how I've seen myself for pretty much as long as I've been pitching, or as long as somebody first told me that I was a really good pronator. As I've started thinking about it, I'm, as well as I make the ball move, to my arm side, I think I am really able to consistently make it move left also, whether it's the slider or the curveball. So I'm kind of trying to figure out an answer for that. I'm not so far on the natural pronator side anymore, in terms of how I think about myself. I would say I'm maybe more in the middle than I thought I was, but I'm also trying to think about it like when your hand moves really fast, when your hand speeds up, you can do more stuff with the ball in terms of how your fingers come off the ball, which I think allowed me to start throwing the sweeper last year, and then the more slurvy curveball. I wouldn't call it 12-6, but it has more up and down action, which is something that I didn't feel like I could do before. And I think really I threw a gyro slider at Air Force, but I didn't really know how to pitch with it. So for the most part, since my sophomore, junior year of high school, when I really started pitching, I've been a fastball changeup guy. And then my body started moving faster, my hands started moving faster, and I think that opened up some other opportunities for the slider and the curveball.
Now your changeup grip, correct me if I'm wrong, is more of like a split grip, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Right in between the middle and ring fingers. I don't have a ball.
No, you're good. Do you find, and sorry to cut you off, but do you find a little bit more, is it difficult to find consistency with that grip, or you feel pretty good because you've gone to it so frequently?
Yeah, so I forget who I was talking to, but they said that man, I forget who it was, but I think they were talking about Scherzer, who said that that it takes 2 or 3 years to figure out a changeup grip. 2 or 3 years of throwing the same changeup grip to figure out a grip that really works for you, and you can consistently have. I've been throwing the same grip since since I really started pitching, started focusing on pitching, probably my sophomore, junior year of high school, and that it's just that's the grip that worked for me then. Feel like I have really good feel for it, and as I've started to figure out my body and have more self-awareness about what makes me good, it's really just doing whatever I have to do with that grip to get it off the side of my middle finger. And so the grip will change, from day to day, from the start of the game to the end of the game. I'll figure out what I need to do but it's always going to be the split grip in between my middle and ring fingers. I'm just going to manipulate how the ball kind of sits in my hand to get it out off my middle finger.
I remember that interview with Scherzer. I thought that was so interesting. I mean, obviously a guy who's like dedicated to perfecting his craft, but like in my journey and learning about pitching, I think one of the things that's been exciting is like everyone's body is different, and therefore everyone's approach to pitching is different because it's about building off what you naturally are good at doing, right? That's why it was so nuts to me that Lance McCullers like 2 years ago was like, I got a slider now. Like now I'm just able to go ahead and throw this slider to the best of my ability. And it was one of like the nastiest pitches in all of baseball. If you were going to put together kind of like a Frankenstein monster of a pitcher that had each different pitch type was from a different pitcher, what would that Frankenstein monster look like for you? Like maybe it's your favorite pitches, or maybe it's just the pitches that you think are the best, but you're building a pitcher. They each have a different pitch type. Whose pitch types do they have?
I would say I'm biased because I really, really enjoy watching Strider pitch. And so I would say his fastball with the slider combination really, I mean, he's a 2-pitch starter in the major leagues. It's hard to do that. And I mean, 2-pitch starter for the most part. He has a changeup too, but the fastball slider combination, I would say is, I mean, I feel like that's what I would probably go with. I'll stick with the LSU connection. I'll go with Gosman's splitter.
Nasty.
Devin Williams changeup, and I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. So I'm trying to envision a body that moves that can throw all those pitches. I'm trying to think of a sinker that would come out of a low arm slot with a massive extension like Strider. But probably those 4 pitches would be really fun or 5, 4, whatever, how many it is. Those would be really fun to throw in combination with each other.
It very much makes me want to go play the show after this and like make a pitcher that has like those kind of pitches. Are you like video games, something that you do at all, and follow up? Like, is it surreal knowing that, like, all right, I can go play as myself in MLB the Show right now?
I'm not a video games guy really. If I am, it's gonna be Fortnite. It's not the show. I don't have the like dexterity with my fingers to be able to move the bat around. I'm terrible at Fortnite too, by the way, but I'm just terrible with the joysticks. So not the show guy, but it is kind of funny to walk in to work out one day or something, and it's happened to me a couple times where guys like, hey, I put up 13 on you yesterday. I'm like, good for you, man.
Cool.
Nice.
Cool. Great. Good job. You're also batting 190 right now. Great job, man. Congratulations. That's hysterical. Who was the best Fortnite guy at LSU?
Oh, I have no idea. I started playing when I got to pro ball, because that's like you just have time in pro ball. I have no idea who plays at LSU. My roommate in Florida is Garrett Edwards, so I'll say him. He's with the Rays.
Say him. They weren't like just sitting, waiting, playing on the jumbotron in center field.
Man, they might have been. I just wasn't there, but I have no idea. I know some of the guys with the Pirates, but I couldn't tell you who the best guy is.
Are you sticking on? We'll get back to some of the technical stuff in a minute, but as a break, obviously tomorrow, are you a big football fan at all?
No, not really.
No, don't even care about like AFC, NFC Championship tomorrow. Don't care at all.
I might throw it on. I like watching Mahomes. I mean, I don't even know who's playing. I'll be honest with you.
That's because you're so dedicated to the craft. That's it. Pitching 24/7. Pitching 24/7. All right, let's get some of these other technical questions. I think they're really interesting. Obviously, very interesting about changing on the rubber based on handedness, right? How did that come to be? Was that something that you did at the Air Force? Was that pre-Wes Johnson, or was that like Wes Johnson being like, let's give this a shot?
Yeah, so I don't know how long it was in the works with Wes, but I was throwing from the first base side the entire fall and the entire winter, and then the first 3 or 4 weeks of the spring season last year. And he came up to me and he was like, I got an idea. And I'm like, I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in. Because his ideas usually work out pretty well. And so it was like, go from the first base side against righties and then the third base side against lefties, to where I'm throwing from 4.5 feet from the center of the rubber against lefties and 2.5 feet against righties. It opens up a little bit more room. The theory is that it opens up a little bit more room against righties to run it in and then tunnel the slider off of it. And then the same thing with lefties also. It's a tough angle with the lefties, but backdooring a lefty is really easy from that angle, because you see it pop out and it's a ball out of the hand and then it moves. 16 inches or whatever, and catches the plate, um, and then back footing lefties from that angle. That's the theory. And so that's something that I've been looking into this offseason. Don't have a definitive answer because I'm wondering if there are guys that I should go from the third base side against certain righties or from the first base side against certain lefties. I just don't know the answer. But the nice thing about some of that is even if you don't have all the answers, the hitters are going to tell you whether it's good or not. And so I don't know exactly how much of a difference it's made. But I'm getting the hitters out, so that's the the end goal regardless.
Yeah, you're doing pretty darn well at that last part, getting hitters out. It's pretty impressive to watch. What is like? I know that you kind of had a journey, it seems, from the interviews that I've watched with you with analytics. It seems like you're a guy who just like loves to learn, right? Like you especially talking with Wes, it seems like you want to go out there and know as much as possible about a situation or about pitching. And I love that. Like, it's super exciting to see that in you. How do you handle all of that and not bring it with you on the mound? Like, talk about that relationship between like analytics and focusing on things about making tweaks with your pitches and then leaving that, in the pen, or not bringing it onto the field. Is that difficult for you to separate those two things? I mean, there's such a heady aspect to the game now. How do you manage that relationship?
Yeah, it's I think that can be tough for certain guys. And I think I've talked to Wes about it a lot, and a number of other people also. But really, I use the data in terms of my stuff to kind of verify what I'm seeing with my eyes. I've been such a feel-based pitcher up to the point where I, had that information, and I wouldn't say that I got lost in all of that information at any point, but it's easy to. And the goal in using as much information as possible for me is to basically verify what I'm seeing with my own eyes. And when you get into the game, you can see some of it in professional baseball. You can hear about it and or go back into the dugout and hear about it and kind of know about what your stuff's doing that day. But regardless, it's at the end of the inning, and you have to, if you feel like something isn't right in the bullpen or at the beginning of the game or the beginning of the inning, you got to figure it out and get 3 outs, and then you can go in and kind of figure it out. But that's something that I use it to verify what I'm seeing, and it's kind of just something that I feel like I do, and I just don't get lost in it. And no, I'm careful about not getting lost in it, but I think that's something that you have to put effort into a little bit, in terms of not being kind of a slave to the data and looking into it too much, because you can just get absolutely lost in it.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, especially because it feels like there's more and more of it each time, right? I mean, like there's learning about spin efficiency and then learning about tilt and access and then talking about seam shifted wake and like all of these different things right now and it's cool. It's great for pitching overall, right? It's exciting to see all that information, but like as a fan, it's fun because I can just read it and dissect the information. I can't even imagine how difficult that must be to like when that has to apply to your actual practice. You know what I mean? Like when you need to learn that to see how it impacts the way that you work. You talked a little bit already about, Wes being a kind of like treasure trove of that kind of information. What's that relationship like overall? I mean, this is a guy who's got a lot of major league experience already. What has it been like working with him over the course of your LSU career?
Yeah, it's been great. And he's a guy that I still talk to. He's obviously coaching at Georgia now, and I've been out there a fair amount this offseason to work with him. He's my guy. As long as he's coaching, I'm going to use him as a resource as much as I can. Literally anything in the game, I feel like. And when I say anything, I mean just anything. In terms of mechanics, pitch shapes, like whatever the stuff that pitching coaches can coach pretty easily. But sleeping,
Mm,
recovery, and stuff like that. Like everything makes a difference. And he sees it as his job to research everything. And so I can ask him about anything that's going to help my performance, and he's going to either have an answer or know where to look for an answer. So, um, and he's not the only one that I have in my corner that's like that, but he's the guy that I worked with for a full year at LSU. I really trust him, and we work really well together. So he's a guy that I'm going to try to keep in my corner for as long as possible.
yeah, I don't blame you. Obviously, everyone watching this right now knows that you're an incredibly talented individual, that you're a fantastic pitcher. They've got a good amount of background on you. I want to see if we can learn a little about like off the baseball field, some of the stuff that you're interested, like who Paul Skenes is, right? Like I knew you grew up in Southern California. Like what would a typical off day for you be like? What are the things that you're like looking forward to doing?
Yeah, I don't really have any hobbies. I don't golf. I play Fortnite to waste time. I'm terrible at it.
Okay.
But I really find kind of like I'm able to unwind with the people around me.
Nice.
So whatever we're doing, when I was in Florida at the complex for a few weeks over the summer, I went out and fished with Hunter Barco like 5 or 6 times, I think. Another guy with the Pirates who's going to be really good here soon. Stuff like that. But I also like really just treasure my off time. And if if I have an off day, it's completely off. I'm not doing anything physical, more so than mental. I'm not a guy who can flip the switch. I don't like not think about baseball very well. If something pops into my head about the game, I'm going to think about it until I figure out a solution or have an answer or something like that. So I'm not a guy who like completely flips the switch from, on an off day from playing games or preparing for games. I'm probably not going to do much physically, but I'm probably going to still be engaged mentally. But yeah, it's not a whole lot of. I like to read, but that's there's not a whole lot in terms of hobbies for me.
Are you like you say read? Is it like you prefer fantasy stuff, sci-fi? Stick to the Bible? You like nonfiction, fiction? What's your preference?
Nonfiction for the most part. I read scripture also, but in terms of books that I'm going to go to Barnes and Noble and buy, it's probably going to be something that helps me get better at baseball, to be honest. So that's the stuff that I like to read.
Dude, I love it. I absolutely like. I don't think you can find a lot of dudes who are number one draft picks. They're like, oh yeah, I saw him at Barnes and Noble last week. Like that's that's pretty awesome. There's one question in chat I want to get to real quick before we move on to some of these other ones. Are you good? You doing good on time? You got time for a few more?
Yep, all good.
All right, cool, man. So this is from chat. Everyone knows that catchers are the smartest baseball players, he says. Having been a catcher in the Air Force, has that given you a special insight into pitch calling and game management?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really cool when I was at Air Force. They actually did not let the pitching coach call the game for us. Nice. It was something that we had to do. And I asked our head coach about it, and he was like, yeah, it's a leadership opportunity. Like, you got to work with somebody else. It's time to lead. And he just said it so like matter of factly. I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, it is leadership. It is one-on-one leadership. But like memorizing scouting reports and figuring out how to sequence hitters and get them out 2 or 3 times through the lineup. That was really cool for me to call the game and do that kind of thing. The most fun I had catching was just, looking at hitters, because you're right there, looking at hitters and seeing what they're thinking, just in their body language, and knowing that if you dot a fastball low and away, or he's sitting soft, or like whatever it is, to see it from the other side of pitching, it helped a lot when I got in, when I transitioned to pitcher only. I don't miss that part of hitting a little bit is like, playing the games with the pitcher. I like to just play games with the hitter. That's where I have the most fun in the game, but I do miss calling games and everything that comes with that.
So like final game of the season, Derek Shelton, you're up at the bigs. Derek Shelton comes up to you and says, "All right, Paul, today you've got two options. You can we're changing the rules of baseball. You can either play a full game at DH today, so you're hitting 3-4 times no matter what, or you can catch the entire game, but you're not going to be able to hit. Which are you choosing?"
I'm catching.
You're no matter what. Catching.
Yeah, no, I like it. That's 9 innings of just being engaged in the game and getting hitters out, working with the pitchers. That's like, I love having those, playing catch and with another pitcher and having ball talk after catch, and it's the same thing, catching. So the no brainer for me. I would love to do that.
How everyone is going to be pushing for this to make sure you catch a game at some point in your MLB career. Like that's I would love that. Really? Is that something you would want to do?
Yeah, and I asked Wes about it when I was at LSU. I asked our pitching coordinator when I'm at the complex, and like, hey, can I catch some bullpens? And the answer is always like, no, like straight up no. So, I'm always looking for the opportunity, and I think I can get back there again, but probably not going to be anytime soon.
I don't know, man. We're gonna start getting some signatures, and we'll see what we can do over on our end. Is there someone on the bigs that you are like? I mean, I know the answer is yes, but like, there's got to be someone on the bigs that you're excited to face, right? I mean, you grew up an Angels fan. Like, are you looking forward to seeing what Trout is like, or Ohtani? Is there someone else that you're like, man, it's not like saying like, oh, I can't wait to strike that dude out. It's not about that, but like, I'm looking forward to that challenge. Like, is there any challenge there that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up an Angels fan, and I don't know how many years Trout's been in the league, but I feel like I feel like I grew up watching him. I mean, forever, but I've been to a lot of games where he's hit a home run, and I've been to a lot of games where Ohtani's hit a home run, and I mean, Pujols, and I mean, you name them. But honestly, I'm looking forward to the challenge of facing the same hitter, in the same division, 10, 12, 20 times throughout the year, and then, the next year and the next year. Because there are guys I feel like in the league that face the same pitcher 100 times, 200 times throughout their career, and you have to figure out new ways to get them out every time. So like, as fun as it would be to name one guy, I don't know that I could, because I've grown up watching so many different players be really good for a long time. So I feel like it would be unfair to the others if I named one guy.
No, I mean, it's a super original answer I don't think we've ever heard before in asking this question, that like, you're more appreciative seemingly of the chess match of like, great, I got this guy out once. It's going to be a different at bat today because he's coming up in a couple innings, or it's going to be a different at bat because we see him in 2 weeks. So it seems like you really appreciate that chess match of like, this is what I learned in this at bat, and maybe it'll fool him again in the next one. Maybe it won't. I'm just going to have to focus on that. Right.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Makes the game a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome. I like that answer. Do you hitting 100 for you now is seemingly nothing. I think you hit 102 on pitch 124 in one of your starts this past year, but do you remember that first time hitting 100? Did that stick out to you?
I don't remember the first time I actually hit 100. I remember was when I was at Air Force. I actually closed out the game against Jay Johnson at Arizona, and came to the field the next day, and our head coach was like, hey, you hit 100. I'm like, did I really? Because I was like 95 to 97 then, like topping 97, and looked on Synergy later and it was like 97. But hey, one of the guns, from one of the scouts said 100 in the stand. So call it what you will. And then I remember last fall in our it was a scrimmage against McNeese State, put some fans in the stands and get to compete a little bit against another team. Got in the dugout and they told me I hit 100, and looked on Looked on bats the next day, and it was like 99.5 or something like that. I'm like, that doesn't count. But so I don't remember the first time I actually hit 100, but I remember the first time I hit 102, and that was a good feeling. But yeah, I don't know the first time I hit 100.
What was the first time you hit 102? Was that in that game? I pitched 124. Was that the first time you hit 102?
No, I was pitching against Arkansas, and it was like a noon game. It was like 100 degrees and a lot of fans in the stands, and looked up and it was like 101.8 or something like that. So I guess it's 101, but or maybe it was 102 flat. I don't remember, but I remember that was my PR, and I was like, sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Have you had any interactions with the fantastic Pittsburgh accent yet? Have you got your Pittsburgh accent down at all yet?
No, I couldn't even try to imitate it for you right now. I was there for 2 days over the summer when I signed, and then got sent down to Florida, and so I'm kind of waiting to. They told me I didn't know anything about Pittsburgh really. I didn't know. They kept saying yins, and I'm like, what does that mean? And then they explained it to me a little bit, and they were like, you should go into your press conference and say, "What's up, yins? How are you doing?" or something like that. I'm like, I think I'm good. So I'm kind of waiting to really get acclimated to the city and the accents and everything when I get called up. So I'll let you know hopefully soon here.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of fun with that accent. I grew up around Maryland and Baltimore, but that accent's like the same. And sports fans with that accent, it's chef's kiss. You're gonna hear some great stuff. Yeah, it's A+ stuff, man. That's sports talk radio. Yeah, it's great. This is the last question I have for you. It's one that I love to ask pitchers every single time I have the opportunity to talk to one. Is there a single pitch that stands out in your mind to this moment being the most memorable one you've ever thrown? It could be one that resulted in a strikeout. It could be that 102. It could be a home run you gave up that like taught you a lesson about something, or the first time you threw, a slider that broke the way you wanted it to. Is there any single pitch that comes to your mind of like, yeah, I remember that?
Yeah, there are a lot. In terms of the home run ones, there are a lot of pitches that resulted in home runs that I learned from. So I'll kind of skip over that part of it. I remember going back to the slider part of it. I remember just playing catch. I was on my official visit at Oregon State 2 summers ago now, and the pitching coach was just like, "Hey, let's because I'm working on a slider." That was like the big project heading into the college season or into the next academic year. But he was like, "Yeah, let's play catch," and I just like, okay, I got this new grip, and I'm going to try it out. And then I made it like really move left. And I was just kind of like standing there. He kind of had the same reaction. He was like, "I've never seen a ball move like that." I'm like, "Neither have I. I don't know what I just did." And I didn't have going to Oregon State, but I figured out a slider that day.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and then there was another. I mean, in terms of like actual pitches in game, I think this past season was kind of one where I learned to pitch a lot more than kind of just trying to beat hitters with, make them swing and miss, and swings and misses are cool, but like looking strikeouts are really fun. You can, send them back to the dugout and know that you beat them mentally, or I guess it depends on the situation, but I had an at bat in the College World Series where we knew the hitter wasn't seeing spin super well, or he was sitting on pitches or whatever you want to call it. And so we went in with the game plan, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. You're going to execute it. And he's going to be out in 3 pitches. And so I'm like, okay. So went slider in the zone, expanded a slider off. He chased, and then he was sit and spin, and just dotted a fastball low and away, strike 3. And that was kind of when I knew, like, all right, I'm figuring out how to pitch a little bit, and that's a good feeling.
That's awesome. That's great. I love hearing that. Listen, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule to do this. You got a lot of people rooting for you. A lot of people just looking forward to seeing you at the bigs and seeing how you develop over the next couple of months, and hopefully seeing you at spring breakout in the next couple of weeks or so. But the best of luck to you, man. Stay healthy. We can't wait to watch you dominate pitchers for a long, long time.
Thank you, sir.
All right, man. I said dominate pitchers, but I think you got what I meant. Dominate hitters. Yeah. I think you got what I was putting down. I'm gonna go shave my face. I'm gonna get that mustache. And then we'll catch you later, man. Thanks for doing this.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing it.